Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things after an all-star break. I hope you guys have been keeping in touch with the NBA because I surely haven't. With me today is the J-Man, Jack Manuel. How are you, buddy boy? I know you've been staying in contact with the NBA.
I've definitely been staying in contact with the NBA. Yeah, I mean, it makes it easy when the OTG network has about 1 million different podcasts with 1 million different teams, general NBA stuff. It's just I listen to them and I'm fine.
What a fantastic plug there, Jackie boy. Well done. We are obviously always affiliated with OTG Basketball. Awesome podcast network, news website, all things NBA. Give them a follow and a like. Before we continue, we have a new background, basketball related even. It is yours. I have claimed ownership of it. I stole it right from under your nose. It was great. And it's a nice addition to the JBT studio, shall we say. So yeah, if you have any posters, send them our way. Send them my way. Don't send them to Jack. Send them to me.
Create some art of us.
That's right.
Someone create like a gif of me.
Yeah,
so
nice. Yeah.
GIF into art. Yeah, why not? Our lovely faces in cartoon form, like you and Chaz did with Empty Bottle Media.
Yes, Chaz was very, very good at that. It took him hours. So if anyone wants to spend hours on JBT, just as we have spent hours on you guys, please return the favor. OTG Basketball. They've obviously got a YouTube network, which I'm sure you're watching us on. If not, at OTG Basketball, give them a follow on Twitter. Subscribe to them on YouTube, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Facebook.com/JustBallThings. We are on the Facebooks. And you can also hit us up on Gmail, on the emails, jbtpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, the Twitter handles are there, at JBTNick, at the JManJBT. Throw a curveball to all you guys, doing the socials in a different order. Am I blowing your mind? I'm blowing mine.
In the Google Doc template, it still has from sunny England and sunny London.
That's right. I don't read it. I obviously don't, not as diligently as I did. I even think that our outro, even though it's the same, it's committed to memory now. I don't even know if it says this. I don't know if it's written the same thing down there, but after 4 years, Jackie boy, you rote learn these things, just comes. All right, let's get started here with some basketball news because the All-Star game happened. Break's over. We're back to basketball. Wizards have started with 2 losses. Doesn't matter because, life is not worth it. No, I'm kidding. This is the Busick-Manuel scale for those of you who are new. This is a JBT created scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale an alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or straight up fact. I assume, Jackie boy, given the topic of this first one, we are going to a subcategory inside Busick-Manuel scale called Brooklyn Bits. Very nice, Jackie boy. More Kyrie Irving talk. Just when you thought it couldn't be enough, but this is in a positive light. Kyrie Irving belongs in the MVP conversation.
Stolen this from our dude Stephen A. Smith, Nicholas, who's gone all the way from telling him to retire to telling him he's now an MVP contender.
Oh, those first take boys. When will they stop?
Well, I don't know if I showed you or if I showed Chaz or if I showed someone else, but Max Kellerman a couple of years ago, they were debating between Steph and Curry who should take the last shot, and he said, "I'm taking Andre Iguodala." And I'm just like,
the aliens have the death beam pointed right at Earth. I'm taking Iguodala. We're doomed. We are doomed. Now look,
those dudes do tremendous work, and we aim to aspire to be as great as they are. But does Kyrie Irving belong in the MVP conversation, Nicholas? I'll give this a very light Twitter fact because he has had an outstanding season. You've probably got the stats and the numbers in front of you, but I'm going to go just from the eye test. watching every single game that he has played for this Brooklyn Nets team, the impact that he has had, the offensive mastery and wizardry that he shows on a nightly basis. He's a goddamn wizard, but he doesn't provide any woes for this Brooklyn Nets team. Don't worry about that. Incredible. Making shots left, right, and center. Tonight, obviously, by the time you guys hear this, the game obviously has happened against who did we verse tonight? We versed the Detroit Pistons. He was really good defensively as well. I thought he really set the tone there. Is he in the MVP conversation? Well, no, because the other guy on his team, the point guard, funnily enough, has that narrative much more in his case, and we've alluded to that in previous episodes as well. But Kyrie Irving does deserve a lot of credit. He's playing in an All-NBA level. He was, an All-Star NBA starter as well. Man, there's so many alls happening in the NBA awards race. But MVP is a bit much, Nick. I remember saying a couple of years ago upon Brooklyn's acquisition of Kyrie Irving in free agency that I said he could be a sneaky MVP contender. It's funny how it's come full circle 2 years later, and we're sort of here right now. He's playing such great basketball. And we're doing this without Kevin Durant. So look, Kevin Durant's our best player as well. What Kyrie Irving has been doing, and I think the leadership that he's provided and the identity that he's given this team, the way he plays the game and the energy and personality that he brings to this team, the leadership that I think is incredibly underrated. We've heard plenty of players from Landry Shamet to the former Brooklyn Net and Taurean Prince rave about what Kyrie Irving has provided to their individual careers and what he provides the team, the passion that he brings, the joy that he brings to this game, the creativity. It's an identity that makes the Brooklyn Nets. Everyone wants to peg them in as like the villain. Everyone has to hate them. But they just play with such an infectious nature that you can't help but love them. And a lot of that is what Kyrie Irving is doing. MVP level, not quite, Nick, but man, he's goddamn fun to watch.
Yeah, it's an alternative fact for me. And maybe another year, in another year, a 27 point, shooting 50, 40, 90 gets you an MVP. Unfortunately, there are much better suitors. One of them, as you said, is on his team. Harden's impact without both KD and Durant have been... KD and Kyrie have been well documented. Obviously, a lot of people have been talking about it, and rightfully so. They went on that massive win streak with just Harden doing Harden things, putting up tremendous numbers. Looks like a completely renewed vigor about him after getting out of Houston. And so, rightfully so, he has been in more of the news than Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's played... He's missed a little bit of the season as well. That is another knock. But again, if you're taking sort of James Harden into account, you're probably not counting his first couple of games in Houston. I think Kyrie may have missed close to 10 games, something like that. He's played 27. So there is that. There is that against him. It's why KD is obviously not even close to the MVP conversation. And the likes of Embiid, which we'll get to later, Jokic and LeBron. Giannis is still having a tremendous season, very much untalked about because he doesn't have that narrative supporting him. There are a lot more deserving candidates before Kyrie gets his say. And I don't see that changing unless Kyrie starts, completely taking over this team, and you see Harden maybe getting still maybe 14 assists, but still 10 points a night. That's when the narrative will shift to his favor. But if Jokic keeps doing what he's doing, and LeBron keeps doing what he's doing, and Giannis, obviously, he hasn't slowed down for 3 goddamn years. I don't think he's close. I don't think he's close, and I don't think he will get close.
It's a fair point. Look, the WhatsApp group conversation that the people that is titled MVP. You mentioned the names there. There's 4 or 5 of them. You may be chucking a Lillard, you're chucking a Stephen Curry.
Yeah, for sure.
It's And maybe there's guys waiting on the wings, and I'm sure that the Nets group chat is fire anyway. He doesn't need to be. I can just imagine. I mean, it'd be fun anyway. I'm sure Embiid would be sharing some fire memes. Jokic just seems like a fun dude that'll be sharing some cool, awesome TikToks, and Giannis will be just sharing like the best smoothie deals from like Jamba Juice every single week on a day by day basis. Shout out to Jamba Juice, man. I miss that place.
Good stuff. I mean, we went to the States close to what? 6 years ago now, maybe 7 years ago, something like that. And I remember one of the first places we went to when we were in the airport was Jamba Juice. It was just like, damn, this is not bad. It's pretty good. We've obviously got juice alternatives in Australia, but
the Boost Juice.
Yeah, the Boost Juice. But yeah, no, Jamba hits different. It's good. I know where he's coming from when he says he loves it so much. So yeah.
And then we also went to Smoothie King when we were in Washington too. So if any of those, if any of those juice affiliated organizations would like to jump on board the buzz, I drink a lot of juice. Got some pineapple juice in my fridge right now. Now, don't give me any winks about the pineapple juice there, Nicky boy.
That feels like an off topic, my dude. That feels like juice preferences.
Look, if we have time today, I don't think we will because we always seem to ramble on about dumb topics anyway.
About pineapple juice, and we're 10 minutes in, and
I'll chuck it in the doc for next week's episode, but. Just before we do move on, Nick, I mentioned 2 other superstar point guards in the league right now. Do you think if you're ranking, if we're doing a DBS, we don't have to do a DBS, but maybe we will at another point in time. Damian Lillard, Stephen Curry, Kyrie Irving. In terms of their season, the individual campaign of 2021 and 2020, whatever, where and how would you rank them?
Lillard's season this year is truly incredible. And that may be heightened from the game winners. Very possible. In terms of, him last year, kind of similar. Not as well from the 3. Obviously, like similar points, but making it up in other areas. So, but you'd be a fool to say that Damian Lillard is having the same year that he did last year. There is this element of him on the court, and ultimately I think it comes down to how well he's closing games. And he's always done this. I feel like he's had a lot more game winners because I obviously don't catch every Blazers game, but I hear about every Blazers game because this seems to happen, and that is, very much a media-driven thing. Obviously, they choose to promote these things, but he's such a invigorating and exciting player that you start hearing about him more, and then that elevates his stature. If I were ranking them, I would put him first. The guy doesn't matter who's on his team. It doesn't matter who he's playing against. The guy is just the most cold-blooded player in the league, and it doesn't matter that he hasn't had playoff success. It's kind of through no fault of his own. But I'd be ranking him first, then Curry, because Curry again is on is almost on a 50-40-90 season. He's struggling a bit from the field, but that would be because he's taking so many goddamn threes that he's not averaging out with his 2s. And career high 93% from the free throw line, which 90 is impressive. 93 is just insane. He misses 7 out of 100 shots from the free throw line, Jack. I looked at that stat today. I was just like, fucking hell. Yeah. So, and the points will always be there for Steph, obviously, because he's such a sniper. And he's about on the same on par with Lillard, but it would be it'd be Lillard, Curry, Irving for me. Unfortunately, your boy comes in third.
Look, I would probably, if I'm being totally objective, I would probably agree in saying that, I've had big arguments with Corey Waldron of Full Access Paces and the outlet about Lillard and Kyrie before Kyrie Irving was a Brooklyn Net, and I've always stand Lillard in that respect. But it's a fun one, and we could probably do a DBS about it. And
Lillard's
really
passing. Lillard's passing as well. He's almost averaging 10. Like he's on 8 assists.
I will
make
a case for Kyrie Irving's passing has been pretty damn good this season too. The numbers won't necessarily be there because James Harden is the point guard.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
As DeAndre Jordan said it very loudly in a post-game interview, Kyrie Irving is the shooting guard.
Yes.
So, it's something that we'll keep an eye on, and a DBS. If you guys want us to do a DBS or a different one, or chat more about Kyrie Irving, comments down below, or hit me up. DMs at the JBT at JBT Nick. But Nick, we'll stick on the MVP race, and you mentioned Joel Embiid in passing there. I put to you, Joel Embiid is out of the MVP race.
This is obviously coming in light of his recent injuries, and we learnt today that it was a non-minor. I think what was it, Jackie boy? Bone bruises. 2 to 3 weeks estimated recovery time. So, a knock on his sort of, I guess, form and status. I guess he is going to miss a little bit of games, especially in the second half of the season, where the games are a lot closer together. He's not out, though. He's not out. 2 to 3 weeks, you'd think, what's that? Maybe 10 games. 10 games if it's 3 weeks, I would say. I mean, they're not playing every second night, but they might be. I haven't checked into that. 10 games out of a 70-ish game, or however many games 72. This season. 72, yeah. I thought it was in the 70s. He has already missed about 5, 6. I don't think that fully discounts you. A lot of MVP voters as well are not taking as much stock into games played because of people that have missed from due to protocol, and unless they are not, the media is going through game by game to find out who missed what when. There's a bit more leniency for missing games, and Joel Embiid has just been dominant for so long. Like, it's not like he was. Like if James Harden were to get injured for 2 to 3 weeks, you'd probably say, yeah, he because he was never the front runner for MVP. He is now, his chances are gone, given how high Embiid was on that list with LeBron and Giannis and Jokic. He can still bounce back right back to it after these 10 games. So this is a hard alternative for me. He is not even close to being out of the MVP race. It's certainly taking a hit, but the Sixers are still firing. They won their last game against Washington without him. He played 20 minutes, but they'll keep on keeping on, And even if they don't, like if Philly start taking a downswing here, which proven sort of they haven't. Their on-off numbers without Embiid, bloody hell, brain's not here today. Without Embiid, are still good. Like they're still winning games without him. But if they do tend to take a slide, that can be more of a narrative push for Embiid to be like, yes, this is how important this guy is because most valuable player doesn't really mean best. It's like most valuable to that team, whatever bloody definitions that every media mogul has. But yeah, I don't. This is not even close to knocked him out. So all power to him.
I'm on the other case, Nick. I think that it's a Wikipedia fact, partly because I don't think it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks because we're talking about a guy that has had a long-running history of lower body injuries. Heck, he was drafted, and the reason why he dropped a little bit was because of those ailments. And I've made my point known about that. I don't think Joel Embiid is going to be long for this league. Well, what that means is, I don't think he's going to play until he's like 37, like LeBron James is. I think it could be early to mid 30s at the best because he doesn't play. He's an injury-prone player. He doesn't play your 75 games plus an 82-game season. And why this hurts is because you get in the MVP narrative, as you alluded to, Nick. lots of people will use the games played narrative to be like, well, Jokic played this many games, LeBron played this many games, and we heard LeBron James say today that he doesn't want to take any games off and such. And obviously, with Anthony Davis out, the burden for him is only going to increase. Jokic and it has been absolutely incredible, and he's an incredibly durable superstar as well. He's like the big man version of James Harden. And James Harden, now that he's in Brooklyn, I mean, there's a narrative against him because of his time in Houston, but his durability is well known. He plays games and he plays a lot of minutes, and he's been as dominant a player in the NBA since he's a rival in Brooklyn. So I think it does hurt him, Nick, because it's such a clustered race at this point in time. And while he probably was my leader. Missing games is an important part, because if LeBron James and the Lakers go on a bit of a run, there's a bit of a tick in his favor. If the Denver Nuggets get into a top 3, top 4 seed, I think that's basically the only thing stopping Jokic from leading this MVP right now is the fact that the team around him hasn't been performing around him. It's as simple as that. And the reason why James Harden isn't probably number one is because of the blip of his Houston era, mini Houston era. So, and LeBron is LeBron. LeBron's going to be around that mark no matter how many games he plays.
Well, LeBron's slide, like his recent sort of the Lakers' recent slide in games before the All-Star break, was certainly used against him. But that. I mean, like you said, people will look to these slight little things to knock them back. But I don't think that the games played will be too much of a big deal. If he is, if LeBron and Jokic, I think LeBron has missed a game. Yeah. Jokic has not. If Jokic comes down with 72, LeBron 71, and Embiid is there with 60.
I don't think he's going to play 60, Nick. I think he's barely going to play 55 in my eyes, and I think you need to play. If you're an MVP contender in previous years and you don't play 70 games,
he's already missed 7 games.
That's the thing. So, at that point in time, he can. That's 65 games total if he doesn't miss a game, and he's going to miss games now. So you're giving him another 8 or so games. We're nitpicking because of the dominance of these superstars and why they are in the race right now, Nick. So I think that you are right. He has played so damn well, and he has been so dominant. No big man has been as physically present and as purely dominant as he has since Shaq. And Shaq is the last big man to win an MVP. It would almost be poetic for Joel Embiid to come back and win one, because he's basically a reincarnation version of Hakeem Olajuwon with the footwork of a goddamn Steve Nash, it seems at times. But I just think that it's so damn clustered that I'm nitpicking because we kind of have to.
I don't think that puts him out, though, because if he comes back and is still the best player in the league, there is a case to be made, and the argument, I guess, will be, is he the best player of the league? Is he playing as the best player in the league right now? And if that can't be definitive for Joel Embiid, as it was, and maybe less so now, because he had a few, he still had some 40-point games, I guess it sort of falls onto the rest of the competition as well. Like, if you see Denver have that slip, Lakers have already had that slip, just say they have another one. And Philadelphia are still an absolute monster of a team. Joel Embiid is still putting up, he's a 10 over 30-point game. Sorry, 15 over 30-point games so far this season, even after missing 7 games. The guy is just the picture of dominance. I think people will more fondly remember that than, if he's scoring champ at the end of the year, for example, which is not out of the realms of possible, because it's per game. It's not total points. It's per game scoring champ, I think. And as a big man, when you have the likes of Damian Lillard and Steph Curry absolutely going nuts, Obviously, Bradley Beal is currently leading, but I don't know if that is the case anymore. He's had a couple of games.
Pretty sure he is.
Not quite, but yeah, maybe. He was close to 34 points, so it's got to be hard to catch him. But, if he can come back and be the dominant force that he has been, and still be, and definitively be he's an amazing. He's had his best season, obviously by far, and the Sixers are amazing. Doesn't matter that he's missed maybe even close to 20 games at the end of the season. I can see a lot of people doing that. I reckon old heads will be like, well, you need to play the whole 72-game season. I don't know. Not
call me an old head, Nick, just because I'm 30.
Not as big for me. And like 72 to 50, like I don't know. Like you can still win the MVP off 60 games in an 82-game season. Like.
Well, the reason why he didn't win the Rookie of the Year was the games played again. It would be almost...
I mean, he played half the season in that year. I think he played like 46 games or something like that.
Yeah, I know.
50 games looks worse than it actually is because 50 games in an 82-game season, yeah, probably not great. But 50 games in a 72-game season, still not good, but not awful. Like I don't think it's enough. It's not enough for me to knock him out. If you start dipping below that 50 and he's in like even in the realms of 47, it starts to get a bit dicey there. But I think 50, maybe 52 is the minimum, is the floor for games played, and he might drop below that, and then I'll be eating my words because it means that he would be out of the MVP race.
Something that the Sixers could use to solidify their standing with Joel Embiid out, Nick, is a buyout or a trade. I put to you, my friend, the buyout and trade candidates could swing the balance of power in the NBA.
I feel like this could be a point, I guess, in every season, because you guys picked up recently Blake Griffin, which I've been listening to podcasts, and I know he's been bad. I know Blake Griffin has been bad. But surely someone out there still has faith that Blake Griffin can, obviously not be Clippers Blake Griffin, that ship has sailed. But to be something better than, or even on par with a DeAndre Jordan. Like, and it seems like from what I've heard and what I've read and listened to, that there is no faith that he can even be that. And I would actually love to hear, I've sort of deviated from the question a little bit, but there's a little bit of like a trade candidate thing, so I'll keep it in the, yeah. But like, that just seems crazy to me. Like, I lost my shit when you guys got him. I'm like, what the fuck? What is happening in this team? How are they getting these people?
I mean, he's been a bad player this season.
Yes.
For the Detroit Pistons.
But for the Detroit Pistons as well, like, mentality has to, if he knows that he's got a chip potentially on his way, that's got to do something to a player as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's everyone was questioning what James Harden would be in Brooklyn. Can he pass the ball? Can he be a normal NBA player? And he's been the most complete version of James Harden that we have ever seen, and he is utterly dominating in a way that is almost unheard of for many players in the history of this league. Nick Fay and I dived really deep on the Blake Griffin signing as soon as it happened, basically during All-Star Weekend. You came over, and the reason why we couldn't hang out was because I was recording that podcast. Yep. To put it bluntly and surmise it as simply as I can, he's going to be a backup five, and he's going to be an offensive weapon, in the short roll, in the pick and roll with James Harden, and he's a really good passer. And the Nets use a lot of elbow action, and what I mean by that is they feed the big man at the elbow, and they provide handoffs for one of the guards, Kyrie, James Harden, Joe Harris on the perimeter as well. So I think Blake Griffin has some incredible passing acumen, and I think that's going to impact the team in a big way. And look, the big man rotation right now, DeAndre Jordan, Nicholas Claxton, and Jeff Green is a small ball five as well. I think it's adding to what was originally a weakness, and it just can't hurt because you're getting him for $1 million, $2 million.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's nothing. Like, he's surely worth more to a team than that, and obviously the Brooklyn sort of championship aspirations has pushed that. But like, has the world given up on Blake Griffin? And even like, is 15 minutes a game too much for him in your eyes? Like, is that too much?
Well, at this point in time,
I don't know what to believe anymore, Jack.
Look, it's because we grew up with these players, Nick. The reason when we started this podcast, Blake Griffin was all NBA level, and what he did in his original seasons in Detroit, he was in the MVP conversation. He would have been one of the guys we're talking about alongside Joel Embiid and such. So look, it has been a really swift fall from grace, and health is going to be the number one thing. That's at the end of the day, and the reason why he isn't playing for the Nets isn't because of any ailments and such; it's because of his conditioning. So if he can get conditioned and get some reps in the training room and get on the treadmill a little bit, because he hasn't played for a long time for Detroit, I think it's going to add something to this team. Claxton's playing about 17 to 18 minutes. I don't want his minutes to increase, because what the second-year blonde god is providing the Brooklyn Nets right now is something really intangible that not even DeAndre Jordan or Jeff Green can provide. And I think he's going to be a real swing factor for the Brooklyn Nets. If you go through my timeline, there's a lot of Nicholas Claxton love.
Yes.
It's Clax City, as I referred to it on the Brooklyn Buzz. So I think it's going to be a balance for Steve Nash, but all you need is a little bit of just a jolt from Blake Griffin every now and then. I think he's going to be a good floor spacer at the very least and fit into the offense nicely, because the Nets are already historic offensively. Let's make it even better. Why not? But other buyout candidates as well, Nick. JaVale McGee, Andre Drummond obviously is likely to be bought out. I don't see how a trade can happen. There's a Trevor Ariza, maybe JJ Redick, and obviously there's plenty of other trade guys. Normally, to say buyout candidates will have an impact, and LaMarcus Aldridge, we don't know.
There's always these sort of diamonds in the rough that you can sort of.
It really happens, though, Nick. I'll only say that the guy that always gets brought up is PJ Brown of the Boston Celtics, way before we even watched this game in the mid-2000s. But Markieff Morris had a decent impact on the Los Angeles Lakers as well.
That's right.
So I think that's probably one that comes into my mind. If the Nets were to acquire one of Drummond or McGee and add even more depth to their big man rotation, I could certainly see them having some sort of an impact, purely because the Nets aren't a great rebounding team, and Andre Drummond is one of the best rebounders in the history of the game. So that certainly gives you something as well. And Ariza as well. I would kill for an Ariza. And you throw in guys like PJ Tucker. I think there are some guys, I don't necessarily think they'll swing, because it's almost like if PJ Tucker goes to Philadelphia, if he goes to Los Angeles, he gives them an extra man in their rotation. But PJ Tucker hasn't played well this season either. A lot of these guys are quote-unquote washed. But I don't think they're washed. I think they're just rinsing a little bit, and they might, you might take them out, and they might dry pretty quickly when you put them on the line. So, in saying that, I think there can be something next. I'll give it Twitter. But if there were to be a trade that were to happen, I just can't see a lot of the big teams don't have the pieces to make a trade. Maybe the only guy that makes sense, Nick, is Kyle Lowry. If the Clippers or the Sixers were to somehow acquire Kyle Lowry, that changes the face of the NBA. That changes the face of the championship race. That is the only name. Unless the Nets were to somehow trade maybe a Spencer Dinwiddie for an Aaron Gordon, I think that could really give them some depth at the forward position. But other than that, the Lakers don't have really many assets to really add anything. The Nets obviously have Dinwiddie and some second rounders. The Sixers have, I guess, some salary fodder and some picks as well. So I think it's going to be, we'll have to look at, Clippers land, but even their assets are pretty bereft. But it's more the Sixers and maybe the Nets if they decide to let go of Spencer Dinwiddie. So overall, Nick, give me Twitter, because it rarely does happen. But Kyle Lowry could swing the balance, and some other guys too could really give some juice and give a jolt to some of these championship contending teams.
Well, the Kyle Lowry thing is interesting, because if a deal is to be done there, the storylines will be to who and for what, which, might be a fairly dumb thing to say, because, well, of course, it's a trade. But there is a very likely situation that if a trade happens to Philadelphia, it is going to be for nothing. Like, not actually nothing, not literally nothing, but and it will be a goodwill gesture from Toronto. And there is also the case where Kyle Lowry is just like, I'm all right in Toronto, and a deal never happens, because I don't think that they're going to be, it's completely on the onus of Lowry where he wants to sort of end his career, I guess. Obviously, being from Philadelphia, that's where all these rumors have sort of speculated from. But he has been a very loyal subject for Raptors for many, many years, and obviously is very well set up in Toronto. So
best Raptor of all time.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Obviously, like one of the longest tenured Raptors as well, if not the. I'm not sure about Raptors history, but yeah. Unfortunately, they are playing down in Florida now, aren't they? Yeah, Tampa Bay. Yeah, Tampa Bay. That's right. So it is a shame that during some of the later seasons, that could be his last season in Toronto. It's not actually in Toronto. In that respect, he may want to just stay. It's like I owe Toronto almost like a farewell tour almost, when things go back to quote unquote normal. But yeah, that one, as you said, that could swing the balance of the NBA, especially if the Sixers can snag him and not give up much in return. Oh boy, you're just adding fuel to that, Philadelphia fire, which is going to be very interesting come playoffs time. And this is why we do this. It's just a big build up for 2.5-ish months of basketball, which I'm ready for, Jack. The All-Star breaks happened, and it feels like for me, I mean, this happens every year. It feels like you get the first half of the season, you're like, this is great. Then All-Star game happens, and then it's like this lull until, for me personally, until playoffs. And then like 2 weeks before playoffs, all the preview stuff comes out, and you're just like, oh yes, here we go, getting psyched. But yeah, good stuff happening in the NBA.
No doubt, Nick. And some things that may be not so good, at least to some observers, is the three-point shooting. Nick, I put to you, there is a problem in the league with the three-point shot.
I mean, the three-point... we're just seeing some highlights of some three-point shots at the moment. It is a bit of a... It has turned into a bit of a Hail Mary.
Homogenization. There's a word for you.
Ooh. I'd love it if I knew what it meant.
When something homogenize, it means the same. So
okay.
So the homogenization of the league is basically everyone's just taking threes now.
Yeah.
You look at the Utah Jazz. The reason why they're the best team in the league is because they are now jacking up threes like
That's
Nick
right.
jacks up other things that I won't mention on a PG-rated podcast.
God damn, Jack. I mean, we do swear on this podcast, so it's whatever. I thought that this was, that this notion was exemplary. Ooh, some nice words.
Oh, you started homogenization.
It was, put on showcase in the All-Star game, where it obviously had the feel of an exhibition game in the sense where dribble. Yeah, I'll just take a three, whatever. And there was no real effort in it. And it was great because they were going in. Amateur leagues, they don't go in. That's why we hate them. And you get half-court shots, obviously, from Lillard. But I think that really exemplified where this take is sort of going. That everyone is sort of playing the same because it is the most mathematically sound way to score. Is that a bad thing though? I like a 3-point shot. Like a 3-point shot in the flow of an offense feels good because it means that your play has been successful. Like that feels as good as, a play zip around that ends in a dunk, And then a sort of we're seeing a lot of them here because a lot of highlights are very contested 3-point shots. They feel awesome as well. Because it's just like, the skill of this guy is incredible. Much like you see, a big guy go to work down in the low post, They feel the same. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I guess there is no diversity now, but was there diversity back in the day where you just have a big guy go to work? You still have different plays that lead to a 3-point shot. If you're really into if you're a real plays guy, then you don't care about the final shot. You're looking at the lead up to the final shot. You're looking at the small differences the defense has done to overcome certain issues. You're looking at flare screens and back screens. Then it shouldn't matter what the finishing shot has come into. My point is that if you care about the final shot, it feels the same as it once did. And if you don't, then it shouldn't matter anyway. If that made sense. I hope I didn't just ramble there, but that's sort of.
I hear what you're saying, and look, there's a lot of like radical proposals from a lot of different people, sort of saying like, they should cut out the corner three, let's extend the 3-point line, change the scoring, make it to 2.5. Steph from 2.5, Curry from 2.5. It doesn't have the same ring to it. I can't imagine Mike Breen saying Curry from 2.5.
250. That's what it's going to be called.
250. Actually, that's not too bad. It's not great.
Steph for 250.
250. I'm just thinking of South Park now, but I won't bring it up. Make it 350 if it's from 30 feet or beyond. Look, I think that there is some sort of just staleness to it a little bit. But I also think that come playoff time, I think that's where we see the real diversity of play, where the mid-range shot really comes into vogue because defenses are so locked in giving away the 3-point shot, especially to the likes of Stephen Curry, Damian Lillard, Joe Harris, Duncan Robinson, these sort of guys. And
it is only a matter of time, though, Jack. Like, surely that is only a matter of time before these sort of 3-point hang-ups get resolved in the playoffs and you start getting 120 to 130 games in the playoffs.
That'll probably be the Nets postseason in a nutshell. I'm pretty confident of that. Look, it could be inevitable, Nick, but I also do think that defense has mattered less this season than any other season we've seen because defense requires the most mental engagement of any other point of a basketball game.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of these players are drained and with good reason, with what we asked of them from the bubble and then returning after such a short layoff and then playing 4 games in 5 nights, 72 games in 170 days, whatever the heck it is. And, teams like the Spurs and the Wizards and the Raptors are going to have to play an inordinate amount of games going forward. So I think it makes sense. Offense is easy for these guys. It's just second nature to be able to just shoot a 3, to shoot a mid-ranger, to, hit the floater, to make crazy layups. Some of these guys are just so offensively gifted. Now, do the rules need to change somewhat and provide a level of allowance for physicality? No, I'm not saying we go back to Gary Payton hand checking, but maybe we allow some of our good defenders, our Marcus Smarts, Ben Simmons, some of these dudes on the perimeter to be a little bit more physical, to throw the shoulder in there a little bit, to throw your hands at least somewhat. I'm not saying that I'm totally advocate for it. I think that we sort of see how this plays out. And ultimately, I purely do believe, Nick, I don't think there are going to be 130 to 120 scores like you would see in a Hawks-Wizards game or a Hawks-Nets game or a Wizards-Nets game where it was 150 to 145. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen because I think the defenses are going to really lock in because that is the point of the season where the games matter the most and every possession matters the most. Whereas the games, the quarters, the possessions matter less in the regular season. I just think that's how it's going to play out. But I do think it's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for a Nets Wizards first round, where you do get across a 4-game series like a 600 points total across that's per team. That will be quite amazing. I love the 3-point shot. I mean, kids love the 3-point shot. I think it's hella entertaining. And the people who don't probably don't watch basketball. Like, a lot of this sort of stuff where it's just like the games are boring are coming from people who didn't watch the game anyway. Because they've thought this way
30 years ago.
Yeah, because they've thought this way for years. And it's like, well, yours is lost. I mean, I coached basketball, for years, and those kids love it. Like, they want to hit the 3-point shots as well. And like these kids, obviously they're small. They identify with these small guards and it's just like, yeah, I can do that. And you're seeing, I gave my kids allowance 1 3-point shot. 1 3-point shot per game. They could choose who took it. It was generally the same kid. But then obviously because it's not an official way to score yet, but they want it to be an efficient way to score. You're going to see, under 18s start playing at a even above not a professional clip, not like they're destined for the NBL, but at a semi-pro level, you're going to see threes raining. And I even saw that in our leagues. Like, there was some people who just shoot threes and that's it, and that becomes an efficient way for them. And in an amateur league, Jack, and we can speak from experience, if you've got a guy shitting threes, you have no chance of winning. No chance, because you don't defend the three, because why would you? No one's hitting the three. And, I mean, I think it's just a good change for the league. It's a good way to score. It's fun and it's hard. Like, it's not dependent on height. Like, it's just purely how good are you at like, it's a school-based thing. And for a long time, basketball has been, obviously it still is very much a big man sport. But when you see the prevalence of the 3-point arc, the potential 4-point shot, and you're seeing, a lot of guards on this list.
Paddy.
Exactly. It allows a bigger demographic of players to enter the league, producing at potentially a more skillful clip. And ultimately, that has to lead to a better quality NBA. I mean, that's my, I guess, idealistic world. Let's call it that. I think it is. I definitely think it is a good thing. I mean, I can obviously. You give me any topic, Jackie boy, I can talk for a while, and I feel like I've talked this one to death.
Look, and ultimately it is a subjective thing, and some of it is the higher ups and the GMs and the executives of the league are looking at it from a purely analytical perspective and how it sort of relates to scoring and such.
Well, they want to win games. They want to win games because it's successful. Because they want to be a successful franchise, and this is the best way to win games. And if you've got the snipers, you can get the points on the board. You just have to shore it up with some defense and a good working culture, and you've got yourself a very, very good team. And it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to be coached into a good shooter than it is to grow a foot, and then just be a dominant big man. We've seen big men enter this league and be shit. We've obviously seen players who can't really adapt that shot, phase out of the league. I don't know. I think it opens a lot. It opens a lot more doors to players than it closes, and I think that's a good thing.
That's a fair thing. That's a fair point. And look, we're looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint in terms of watching the game. And one thing I will just say before we do get to some Wizards woes, the number of 3-pointers per game at this point in time for teams compared to last season is only up by 0.8. So, and
there you go.
And look, maybe
this has been a growing thing for the past 3 years. If you took decade by decade numbers, I think that's a better indication because it sort of all fell in when the Rockets and Golden State obviously started jacking those threes. When you saw these All NBA players and be like, well, I mean, he's All NBA, like he's an All NBA player, but he's just hitting threes. Like, surely we can have guys who can hit threes. And then D'Antoni Ball was the big thing, and it all spiraled from there. And it's all the analytics came out about it. And
now it's Jazz Ball.
Now it's Jazz Ball. That's right. Jazz Ball. I like the way that sounds. Which was not indicative of the Jazz for a very, very, very long time.
Oh, it's the reason why they've been so damn good this season, because of that 3-point shot and the way they've incorporated their ball movement into that as well. But another team that likes jacking those threes next is the Washington Wizards. Wizards work.
Wizards work.
The Washington Wizards is making noise.
I drank some bleach all the way down to the blue, and now I'm starting to feel like Harry Potter.
The blue water bottle makes an appearance in the podcast. Good stuff, Jackie boy. Bradley Beal had some comments. It was a few weeks ago now. I feel like, maybe it was last week. Well, rather, it was reported. Bradley Beal's loyalty to Washington is reminiscent of Damian Lillard's allegiance with Portland and Stephen Curry's allegiance with Golden State. Jackie boy, this is... I mean, it should be music to my ears, but I remember when you sent me this tweet that sort of alleged this, and my first reaction was, you absolute fool. Get out. Get out, Beal. Do something better with your life. But obviously, as a Wizards fan, it's great. You know, he is the reason I watch. He's so silky, smooth, and it's just more of the same stuff that he's been doing for many, many years. Obviously, at a better clip now. But you know, people are starting to warm up on Bradley Beal, which is great. You know, a bit of media attention to the Wizards, only for one player, but that's fine.
Russ Westbrook still gets a little bit.
That's true. He had a massive game today. That was brilliant. When he goes off, that's fun to watch. Like a Russell Westbrook awesome game is, you know, up there with some of the greatest players in their, you know, great games. They're too few and far between now. And when he has a stinker, similarly, it is one of the worst things.
Nick, Bradley Beal, we're on the
Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal. I'm sorry. Bradley Beal. I mean, yeah, my first reaction was, you idiot. It's because I am a rational man and I just want the best for Bradley Beal. And I know he's not going to get the best from Washington.
Win the best for someone,
exactly.
even if it's not staying with your organization.
That's right. I want him to get a chip in his career, you know, and I always say that if I was in that boat, I would be, you know, the championship is the ultimate prize. You've been dreaming about it since you were a kid. Why not chase it? Like, and I always hate that. It's like people who chase rings. It's like, if I was good enough and I got given that opportunity to you know, almost secure a championship, you'd be an idiot not to do it. And I hate the whole fandom loyalty. It's just like, fuck off. Anyway, I'm happy that he loves Washington. I'm happy that he makes it less of a shithole. I love it that he makes it a little bit better for players to even consider. You know, if we didn't have Beal, then maybe, you know, free agents don't even consider it even less upon. Obviously, we're not massive, but like, consider it even less. Maybe Russell Westbrook doesn't come to the Wizards because Bradley Beal isn't there. You know, and so there is this silver lining where it's just like, you want to stay with Washington. That is amazing. Like, you want to give everything to this organization. There is certainly value in that.
It reminds me,
you are not going to get the best out of your career if you stay at Washington.
It reminds me of, I think it's Dark Knight Rises, where Anne Hathaway, Catwoman, is speaking to Batman, and she's like, "You've given this city everything," and then Christian Bale's like, "Not everything, not yet." And I'm just like, and then obviously we know how Dark Knight Rises ends.
But the loyalty is brilliant. Like, it's heartwarming and it's great, and a lot of fans really, really value that. I do not. I think it's great, but then I also look at it from his perspective and what he wants. And if that's what he wants out of career, that's great. That's not what I would want out of my basketball career if I was in some way, shape, or form talented at anything. Like, I would want to strive for the highest peaks, you know, and if that means if that means moving teams and even becoming second fiddle to someone, it's like, doesn't matter. You learn how to you get that championship pedigree. The road to a championship it still feels the same. The release of winning one, like, even if you're I mean, every professional sportsman can attest to that, but to be at the best. I don't know, and that's what I would want. That's what I want as a fan. I obviously want us to win a championship, so I want that as a fan. Why wouldn't you want that out of your players? Like, you want your players to want to win championships. They're not going to get it done here. I don't know. It's a little bit weird. Like, I don't I don't hate the guy for doing it. Obviously, I love him, and he will always be a wizard. It'll be like one of our greatest ever wizards, you know, if he stays with his career at his current trajectory. But yeah, my first instinct was you deserve better, and I think that's where I'll be. And it might bite me in the ass. We might be championship contenders one day. Who knows? But you know, that's a hopeful future. I don't think will happen.
The comparison point of Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry is somewhat apt. Obviously, it is closer to Lillard because Lillard has similarly, been like, oh well, he's showed such loyalty to Portland, and it's just like, dude, just team up with LeBron, go to Lakerland, or do something. But
would Portland fans, and I know that a lot of Wizards fans are a bit more open-minded to him being traded. It's like, it's not the end of the world. We understand where we are. We've got very good self-awareness. If Portland were to lose Lillard to a trade, would they boo him on return? Surely not. Like, surely they would understand.
Kevin Durant left in free agency.
It wouldn't be a betrayal.
He had every right. I think it's look, the Wizards have made nearly Eastern Conference semifinals, whereas we've seen the Blazers make the finals and could be there or thereabouts again this season. And I don't think that they are in the championship category. I think there are plenty of teams in the West and the East, for that matter, that are above them. But maybe that's the reason that keeps getting him there, because he wants to have the success with that organization. Will Bill have? But then
success? at the point of, would you rather not have the success at all? Like, that's the trade-off. Like, you'd obviously rather not have the success at all than the success, like, with a different organization. Like,
yeah. Look, and that's
I don't know. That's a notion I don't understand.
And sometimes winning isn't everything. I think
liar.
But like, Nick, you're almost going back on some of your own words, because it's like, the ranks culture, as we like to refer to it as, sometimes can have an element of toxicity to it. So if Bradley Beal is happy and fulfilled in his basketball career, and he doesn't feel the need to be validated by a ring, then good for him.
Yeah, that's right. And it's obviously all a personal decision, like exactly like you said. If he's fine with it, then that's fine. Would you be fine with it? Like,
I wouldn't be, but I've never.
We've never been in that situation.
If Dunks approached me and said, "Hey, you got to give up JBT," and they're like, Nick Busick can't come. It's only you, because we need another Australian on the podcast, and they have to be 6'2" or above. I'd be like, yeah, mate. But like, what's the look? It's a completely different conversation. But I think it's ultimately,
Jack. If you get that offer, you do it. I don't give a shit. You do it. And this is the thing. Like, it's an element of selfishness to hold on to them so tightly, and ultimately, if he wants to stay, that's fine, but he shouldn't feel pressured to stay. That's where I sort of lean on, and I'll close on that. He shouldn't feel pressured to stay.
Look, it doesn't seem that way. We'll see how it all sort of pans out. It's him or Towns are, I guess, the new sort of superstars on the market. After the James Harden deal this season, we'll see how it pans out, Nick. But let's wrap it up, because I've got some black bean stir fry to cook.
Oh yeah, I've got some. Oh, what have I? I've got to put some roast pumpkin in the in the oven. Yeah, having some roast pumpkin, some chicken. Yeah, it's good stuff. That's a basic dinner tonight. With some
nothing all basic.
Mashed potato, best potato medium. We've had this conversation before on this podcast.
Don't bring it up again. We're going to another 45 minutes on an off topic.
All right. Because we are adults and we need to prep dinner, that just about does it for another week. So we'd just like to say thank you for tuning into Just Ball Things. As always, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, we will be there. We are obviously on YouTube as well at OTG Basketball, the OTG network. Make sure you hit that. Make sure you like the video for starters. Leave a comment if you want to. Subscribe if you want to. I would very highly recommend it, and hit that notification bell if you do. Helps us Yeah, helps you know when new stuff comes out. If you're catching us on the podcast, make sure you leave us a rating and review. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. That just about does it. So we should just like to say thank you. Thanks, guys. We appreciate any and every post heading our way. And it's you guys that make the show great. I'm changing up the order. What is happening? So until next week.
Keep balling, superstars.